Chapter 2: Bit Unit: The Measurement of Human Value. Today, the measurement of value is done thanks to money. Everything is worth some amount of money, but money isn't worth the same to everybody, and it doesn't work the same anywhere. This allows companies globally to explore these changes in order to achieve higher profits. And because these profits are directly connected to the performance of these companies, the intrinsic value is generated solely towards the companies. The disregard of human value is inherent and is creating some social consequences with global ecological repercussions. To tackle many of these issues, it is necessary to rethink and reprioritize many of the structures that have been built, and reform and revolutionize many of the concepts that have been taken for granted. For this reason, and to better grasp the magnitude of and better cope with the multitude of changes, and to fully reason and have a more bias-free approach, it is helpful to start this chapter with some mental exercises in general. So, the first one is imagine that you are the only last person on Earth. What is the only resource that you can gather that allows you to reach other resources and act to survive longer? One good first answer can be hair, for example. Somehow the act of breathing by itself does not allow to reach other resources fundamental to one's life. And the main reason regards that this is a very subconscious act. The only resource left is information. And to know where it's possible to find a safe water source or to gather food is one of the principal bases to guarantee one's survival. By understanding this, it's possible to start to understand the value of information in the individual perspective. Till now, human beings came to process this information fairly instinctively. However, as the world progresses, and by taking into consideration that humanity have been constructing tools that allow to gather and store more information, it's possible to divert its usage to construct and develop better process and ways to live, including a new and fairer economic structure. To develop something like this is of most importance to preserve and allow the individuals to reach and construct new knowledge according to one's own necessities, interests, and desires. However, this should only have the direct input of the individual, since he is the one that furthers and nurtures his own motivations to seek information. For this reason, it is necessary to give access to everyone to computing servers in order to store and organize ever-growing amounts of information. This goes in line with the necessity to turn our spaces more self-sufficient and more technological developed. By doing so, it's possible to start to create the basis of such an economic leap, and the reason for it is that by individually gathering information, motivated by one's interests, it's possible to account this data not in the content form but in the amount of bits stored and organized, and add it to a global counting that can fuel the economic basis indefinitely. It's important to understand that the objective is not to gather information from the individual, but to gather the amount of information that the individual used regularly and add it to the global count, which is the generated amount of bits of the individuals, uh, and this should be private. But the global amount of it, all the generated amounts of all the individuals should be public. This will transpire in the individual the freedom to search for his real motivators without judgment and with possibility to create more and useful knowledge. And lastly, experiment it and pass through what one as learned in the form of wisdom. This will develop also at least three much needed emerging technologies. At least data mining and processing, due to increasing amounts of information that can be stored, and allowing a personalization of the processing, blockchain, needed for security and privacy issues, and artificial intelligence, that could be a key factor for individual development, stronger pattern recognition and organization. Furthermore, some software tools might have to be developed to encompass the changes and to better suit one's self-enrichment through information, and to better understand these and better be grasped by everyone. A more resilient and humanely connected educating system will serve to make the necessary adaptations in society and at the same time guarantee the success of newer generations. I need also to add here a small point regarding artificial intelligence that I talked previously. The objective is not to have one big artificial intelligence for everyone, but instead to have one singular artificial intelligence for each individual. This artificial intelligence would develop with the individual by himself. The big difference is instead of having one that overlaps all, it's many that cannot be overlapped by any other one. Back to the text. So far, the erosion of privacy has been producing ever-growing chains of discontentment, deteriorating the building of knowledge and blurring the critical thinking. Furthermore, it is essential to understand that privacy plays an important role in the general development of both societies and individuals. For instance, it is fundamental for democracy to take its shape, which is governing system considered by many as one of the that allow more freedom to its citizens. However, this freedom can only be materialized in a healthy democracy if individuals experience true privacy, which no longer is the case. For this reason, it is necessary to create a safe, secure software system that allows the individual to develop oneself as well as its own critical thinking in order to better produce useful information and at the same time be used as a history of self-development. And by gathering the amount of bits produced in one's quest for self-improvement, it's possible to contribute directly for the economic development in general. This creates a self-fulfilling cycle that can be translated in the power of individuals being canalized towards the social development. Because the global value and the value of groups is directly correlated with the growth of individuals. To better evolve the concept of privacy is useful to experiment with another thought exercise. So, second example is if information has value and the current measurement of value is money, should you take care of your information the same way you control your money? So, in today's society, money has become such a fundamental part of the daily basis that is seen as a fundamental necessity. Plans are drawn regarding it, transactions are made with it, and values are measured with it. However, its value is momentary, and the basis of it is sustained in belief. And even though this is the case, people still demand and expect financial security and privacy. The sheer belief in it, however, translates into awe when markets crash and crises occur. And when something like this happens and people try to figure who was the culprit, if there is one, is in many times due to corruption, manipulation, or preying on a mistake. allowing those culprits to walk free for exploring a failure in the system or walking the line of legality. These have been creating a lot of discontentment, disbelief, and ultimately suffering, especially with those that must think how to get it to the survival level. Privacy and security around money are in many cases just security theater. The fact that there is no global understanding of the value of money, it allows unpredictability and that generates concern, which in turn makes it unstable. This instability is one of the fundamental root problems of the actual economic system. One way to understand it is to evaluate and try to understand economic development of countries. Governments rely on the gross domestic product (GDP) to understand how healthy are their economies. However, it's hardly the best tool if it's taken into consideration inflation or the general cost of living and many other factors. The main reason for this can be tracked back to the value of money. To better understand this, another simple mental experiment can be added to this chapter, which is how much money is there in the world at any given moment. And the truth is, it is nearly impossible to have an answer. And that shows that there are a few questions that the current system is inequipped to solve. If this put up in accordance to the topic of this paragraph, then it's difficult on the global scale for the actual value of money be considered a safe investment. Furthermore, it is necessary to understand that even though economic growth is invariably connected to infinite growth, or at least in the potentiality of it, money is not, at least not directly. And again, the problem regards in not having a sustainable basis. Also, the system is inefficient when it can't translate productivity levels in comparison with global numbers, and this is easily noticed in the GDP per capita. Finally, there is the question regarding what is considered work, or in other words, how much is the worth of anything that one might do. And to better reach this understanding, there is a simple mental experiment that can be expressed that will be put in some questions. And these are the questions. What is the worth of a volunteer? What is the worth of an essential job? What is the worth of a student, an investigator, or an artist? And what is the worth of being a full-time mother? These few questions have no specific answer in the current economic system, so it will be answered with the detailed description of how the BET system would handle it in a way present an answer for the human value. So, to start this, is necessary to understand that the notions that will be regarded here will be essentially brought in the individual and global scale. And the reason is to allow some flexibility in the reasoning and understanding of the full system. Furthermore, it is necessary to have in consideration the previous notion that there is information to be found everywhere and in everything. Lastly, it is important not to fully disregard the notion of groups or communal needs. However, due to its complexity, it will be regarded with more detail structurally in the next couple of chapters. Because each individual is a source of information, this means that every individual can be a mine for information and create information. This translates in each individual being a data processor. Although this information can and ultimately be for self-interest, it does not mean that there is no information being gathered. Currently, IT companies are the ones that gather the information. However, the purpose is not for the individual and it can't be translated into personal growth and ultimately serves these companies financially and not the individuals. So the concept here is instead of companies being paid for the data of individuals, it is possible to adapt this notion directly towards the individuals in two ways. One works like the actual system with some fundamental adaptations. The other serves as a base to fully integrate individuals in this new system and at the same time develop an actual basis of worth in which the monetary value can be analyzed and measured, and also creating a factual dependent market on the individuals and asserting the value of humans towards humanity. This first notion explained here regards the potentiality and freedom that each individual has in defining what is the most useful information to himself and the possibility to accumulate information that is most useful to oneself. Because it is already possible to fragmentate information into its most singular form, like the binary digit or bit, making it possible to measure it and store it in banks of information. This allows the possibility for the system to know how many bits of information someone can gather during a period of time, being this daily, weekly, monthly, or even yearly. This can serve in the global perspective as the individual global input, the IGI. These statistic can then be divided by all the population that uses the system, allowing it to create a medium of the IGI. This medium can be used to generate a universal basic income or a credit of usage. In this, it's possible to list the minimum necessities that each individual might incur and allow freedom to live life and make choices according to one's desires and interests. Another advantage to such a system regards the actual value of human life, which can be argued of being a dangerous precedent. However, it seems that currently humans have less value than the financial profits. This would allow for more freedom and an increase in the value of employees in such a way that it would make jobs better paid. Lastly, this would create the possibility for individuals to store and have proof of all the information gathered throughout one's life, which could serve as a proof of expertise and knowledge in any topic of interest that one might pursue. For this notion to be in its full potential, is necessary that the gathering of information and the building of knowledge are completely and purely private. And the reason regards the need for trust and the building of a judgmental, free virtual place outside of anyone's head. This is one of the biggest problems that currently IT corporations, governments, and other structures with global reach face. Their forced penetration is a direct violation of human rights, which creates distrust in the current system and inevitably crisis. One way to build this virtual place can be made with the use of blockchain software, technology, and development of a more accessible server hardware structure, being this for personal or group usage. And it can be seen like a locker of personal data, or in economic terms, a bank of information owned by the individual. The second notion goes further and is aligned with how the system currently works, bringing back the notion of global wisdom as the gold standard of information. To better understand this concept, it's useful to deconstruct the value of exposed information. Some information of global importance and its acknowledgement is useful independently of culture, localization, or even any biased belief. This type of information is not yet defined and fully discovered, and it can change its value with time. However, it's crucial to guarantee development in such a way that serves the purpose of how useful is it to the most number of people. To expose information that is fundamental to humanity's future and development allows individuals to have the possibility to strike gold, which in turn not only develops global economy, but at the same time increases the value of the individual and the groups that himself is a part of. This creates the global necessity in individuals to generate and expose information that is needed globally, giving the opportunity to higher achievers to develop themselves economically towards global necessities of all humans. Also, this creates the necessity to share useful information, making it the rule, not the anomaly, which is one of the actual stances of the present economics system. By connecting the value of information that individuals gather and generate towards the economic global development, it's possible to create an economic system that can serve all equally and at the same time instigate development in the global perspective, create individuals more aligned with the interest of humanity, and also promote independence and freedom. In a short stance, everything that anyone is doing can be considered working towards information development and should be paid accordingly, enough to continue to generate valuable information. However, if someone wants to have or wants or have the necessity to produce more and be rewarded for the extra work, then through exposition and thanks to the need of others for newer information, it's possible to do it so. However, for this to work and to better capacitate individuals and the societies that are interested in having a fairer, more productive, and ultimately more human economic system, it's fundamental to create the tools that will allow individuals to gather and organize information smartly and safely. And to better prepare societies and their individuals is fundamental to reform and reconstruct the educational system in order to better align their interests and potential towards human goals. And that is another reason why the current economic system needs to be revised, since it does not take in consideration the current development and it no longer prepares individuals to their best selves.